Okay, this is a new chapter, Nutrition in Plants. So what to focus in this chapter? We are going to look at the main inorganic nutrients, as well as organ for water and mineral salts uptake, and the diversity in plant nutrition. So nutrition here refers to pemakanan. Okay, so under theme 1, still physiology of flowering plants, we are now at the third chapter, nutrition in plants. Okay, so do not forget, plants, they are organisms. So like other living things, they need to grow well and they need to produce high quality yields. So in order for them to do that, they require nutrients. So they need these inorganic nutrients in order for them to be able to produce organic compounds. Remember the organic compounds that you've learned back in Form 4? For example, those carbohydrates and also proteins. So now we are going to look at what are the inorganic nutrients. Okay, so it is divided into macro and also micronutrients. Macro by the word itself, micro by the word itself, you can already guess the meaning. So these nutrients, they are divided according to quantities. Okay, according to quantity. So macro, big quantity, micro, small quantity of nutrients. So these are the macros. You have to be able to divide them or classify them accordingly. So let's look at the three main macronutrients, the C, H, and O. Okay, still remember carbon, hydrogen, oxygen element being the main element in carbohydrates. So these macronutrients, actually they can be easily obtained from the air, from the water, that is in the soil, from the soil. So these nutrients make up most of the dry mass of plants. If these plants have a lack of these nutrients, okay, that is going to be a big trouble. But this rarely happens because they can be easily obtained from their surrounding air and also water, which is from the soil. So the remaining nutrients are taken in the form of mineral salts, okay, which are dissolved in the soil through fertilization. Okay, so remember CHO, these three main macronutrients, okay, from the air and water, whereas the rest are in the forms of mineral salts, which are dissolved in the soil through fertilization. Okay, let's look at the necessity of macronutrients in plants. Necessity means the significant, or why is it needed. So every nutrient has its own function, we know that. Okay, they are responsible for certain tasks in order to ensure that the plants complete their life cycle and also to achieve optimum growth. Okay, so take note of the keywords: complete life cycle, achieve optimum growth, as well as development. Therefore, the lack of one or more macronutrients can be very troublesome. It's going to cause bad effects on the health and growth of the plants. So let's look at this table, which is very crucial. Okay, these are the macronutrients over here, this column, their functions, and what happens if they are lacking. Okay, so normally these terms chlorosis, chlorophyll, so this one has to do with the green thing. So if the leaves appears to be yellowish, okay, there's a photo on this, yeah, chlorosis, so that means they are yellowish, okay, yellowish means they don't have enough chlorophyll. Okay, you can guess that from the terms itself. So the yellowing of leaves, this is caused by lack of nitrogen, macronutrients. And when you look at the function, oh, that's the function of nitrogen. It gives the green color to the plants through the formation of chlorophyll. So therefore, if nitrogen is not enough, what happens is that there won't be enough of chlorophyll and therefore result in the leaves appearing to be yellow. Okay, and also you have other effects over here. You can see underlying leaves fall off easily. Protein disruption also, synthesis also disrupted, because nitrogen, this element, is one of the elements which is present in protein. Okay, so that's why you see main components of proteins. So it makes sense when you study, how are you to remember? You look at the terms, then you trace back to this element, recall of the functions. If they do these tasks, then you ask yourself, if these tasks cannot be done, so what's the effect? So that's how you remember the functions and also the deficiency. Okay, the effects of this deficiency of these macronutrients. Okay, same goes to potassium, which is also important in protein synthesis, carbohydrate metabolism, core factors for some enzymes, maintains plant turgidity. Okay, so the effects, then you have to opposite the function. So for example, without potassium, without sufficient potassium nutrients, what happens is that protein synthesis is going to be disrupted, and the edges is going to appear yellowish. It's the edges of the leaf, tepi daun itu. So you look at this condition, very yellow, and especially at the edges, it's because of the lack of potassium macronutrients. Okay, stunted growth, premature death of plants. Okay, so the macronutrients, now COH, they are important components in the carbon cycle and also oxygen cycle. Okay, they are the components in all organic compounds of plants, important in the synthesis of sugar. Okay, remember just now I mentioned this is the element that forms the carbohydrate, isn't it? So that's why it says here sugar. So what happens not if carbon, oxygen, hydrogen is not enough, is that photosynthesis will not take place. This one is the most important thing. You imagine if plants itself cannot undergo photosynthesis, what's the product of photosynthesis? Glucose, isn't it? If there is no photosynthesis, the main product, which is glucose, definitely cannot be produced, and the byproduct, which is oxygen, definitely is not released. So in this case, reduce the rate of photosynthesis, therefore less. You use the term less oxygen is released. Okay, continue on, still under macronutrients, which are the nutrients needed in large amount: magnesium, phosphorus, and also sulfur. Okay, magnesium, usually they will give you, for example, the effects of deficiency, where parts of the mature leaf veins becomes yellowish. It is not all, but only parts. And some of you get to see those leaf surface having red spots, and the leaves appears to be low. Now this is telling us a message that the plant is now in the condition of lacking in this magnesium nutrients. Okay, so the function itself here also, it is one of the component that main component of the structure of chlorophyll, and that's why you see the condition here yellowish. Okay, also in some plant enzymes, activation requires these ions, and also carbohydrate metabolism. Okay, for phosphorus, remember ATP, so this P stands for phosphorus. So phosphorus is very crucial in synthesizing nucleic acids, as well as ATP and also phospholipids in the plasma membranes. Still remember the phospholipid bilayer. Having this phosphor is actually referring to phosphorus. Remember the head and also the tail of the plasma membrane. Okay, also it is as core enzymes in photosynthesis and respiration. So if it is not enough, lacking or deficient, what happens is unhealthy root growth. Dark green and dull colored leaves. Red or purple spots appear on the older leaves. Okay, so this ATP, these macronutrients, if you are to look back, let's trace back, it says enzymes, cofactors for enzymes. Okay, another one is also here, activating some plant enzymes. This one is also as coenzymes. Okay, a few types of coenzymes. So you notice that these ions are very crucial in that they serve to be the cofactors of the enzymes, to activate the enzymes. And you know that this enzymes is very important in catalyzing all those metabolism that is happening in the plants. Okay, this. Okay, so let's continue on to look into the necessity of micronutrients. Micro, that means they are needed but in a lesser amount. So chlorine, ferrum, manganese, and also boron. Okay, the list continues on with zinc, copper, nickel, and also molybdenum. So the first thing to do is to differentiate which are the macro and which are the micronutrients. Okay, and then let's look into the deficiency. Young leaves become yellowish. So this one is rather quite general when you see the terms yellowish. Okay, usually they will ask you those that are quite distinctive. Okay, for example, this one, copper, involves in nitrogen metabolism, also in photosynthesis, for growth, reproduction, flower formation. So if lack of copper result in the death of the young shoot apex. So here you can relate to this, the second point of growth. The brown spots. Okay, brown spots, if you are to see here, there are no other effects that shows the brown spots. So you can start to memorize bit by bit brown spots. That is because of copper lacking. And then stunted growth. Stunted growth also quite general. You see that it appears in few other of these micronutrients. The deficiency. Okay. This one, the leaves become thicker, roll up, fragile, terminal buds, depth, abnormal growth. So this is related to boron. Okay, light brown or gray spots. This one is also quite distinctive. Gray spots, and that is manganese. Okay, auxin, synthesis of auxin, which is the growth hormone. Okay, if there is no growth hormone, definitely it results in stunted growth. Okay, molybdenum involves in nitrogen fixation, nitrate reduction during protein synthesis, nitrogen fixation, and also nitrate reduction. Okay, because protein synthesis, one of the important element is the nitrogen. This fixation of nitrogen, the task over here, these micronutrients is playing role. It is involved in these processes. Okay, so in the end, if protein synthesis is reduced, so it's going to reduce the crop production as well. Okay, So let's look at the history corner over here. There's this term that you need to know, and that is NOP solution. Okay, what's the meaning of NOP solution? It contains all nutrients. It's a solution, a culture solution that contains all nutrients, including the trace elements, which is needed by healthy plants. Trace, very little, okay, little bit. So these are the components or the compositions of a complete NOP solution, NOP's culture solution. Okay, there's water over here, some trace elements, as well as the macro and micronutrients in it. Okay, so culture solution, what's the function? It is to study the importance of nutrients for plant growth. And the chemist's name that prepared this solution is Wilhelm Nopt, and that tells you why is it called Nopt's solution. Okay, this again the composition, the same table just now. So if I am to break it down, calcium nitrate, so that means it consists of calcium ion, nitrogen ions. Okay, if it is potassium nitrate, potassium ions, calcium, nitrogen, potassium, is all these three ions are present in this two solution. So you ask yourself again, calcium, nitrogen, potassium. Calcium, nitrogen, okay, calcium, nitrogen, potassium. The N, potassium, P, the calcium. Okay, and also the over here, calcium, nitrogen, potassium, the macro ions, phosphate, phosphate is phosphate over here, phosphorus, macronutrients, still under macronutrients. So these are the macronutrients. Potassium just now. Okay, magnesium and sulfur. Let's go back and see. Magnesium, sulfur is here, magnesium is here. So all these are the macronutrients. All these are the macronutrients. Okay, so you get to see all these macronutrients is present in the NOP's culture solution. Okay, so there is this experiment, the effects of nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium ratios, NPK. Okay, you had heard of this fertilizer, Baja NPK. So the effects of nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium ratios on the plant growth. So the problem statements, we want to know what's the effect on the growth of corn seedlings. And this is the aim, that you want to investigate the effects of the identified nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium ratio. Okay, and hypothesis is that corn seedlings undergo healthy growth in NOP solution with the ratio of nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. Okay, so all this procedure over here, the setup, having this cultured solution. Okay, so you get to see some of the precautionary steps that you have to cover all the culture bottles with black paper. The reason is you want to avoid growth of the green algae. That is going to serve as a distraction for our experiment. So you have to connect the culture bottles to an air pump to ensure that the roots has good aeration. So in other words, they receive enough oxygen supply, and you have to replace the bottle with a new solution every week to ensure that they are well nourished with all these nutrients. And this is the what do you call that, the technique where you have to observe and record the growth of the seedlings. Okay, in terms of these are the aspects, the color, the plant height, the root length, as well as the stem strength after 4 weeks, and that is about 1 month. Okay, so the table over here, okay, with the respective components just now. Okay, so you have a culture bottle of the first one having enough or a complete culture solution. B serves as a control. That means we don't provide B with the NOP solution. C, we take out those the nitrogen. So that means we want to check if nitrogen is not enough in the plant. Okay, what do you get to see? And then D, okay, you want to test for phosphorus and also potassium. So it's the NPK over here. NPK over here. So that's replacement mix. Okay, and you are to observe. Okay, so results over here. Okay, in terms of nutrient deficiency, okay, the first bottle just now we say it's complete, so that's why you get to see the healthy growth of the seedlings. B has got none of the nutrients, therefore cannot grow and will die. C, D, E, okay, respectively. C has got nitrogen, and then D, phosphorus, E, potassium, NPK. So observation is that the leaves turn yellow without nitrogen. So why, if you have to look back at the table, you still remember that? Go back to the table to study the effects, the functions of nitrogen, and if it is not enough, what do you get to see? Okay, how about phosphorus and PK? Sorry, this is potassium. Phosphorus over here. So you expect to see this type of observation. Okay, let's go back to the discussion just now. Stunted growth, stunted growth, stunted growth. Okay, the leaves turn yellow. This one dark green with red dots. Okay, that is the feature of plants having lack of phosphorus. Okay, if it is potassium, it's the edges, not the entire, the edges of the leaves turning yellow. Okay, so these three you have to remember. Okay, the whole leaf turned yellow, and that is because nitrogen is not enough. Okay, dark green, red dots, phosphorus not enough. The edges of the leaves turn yellow for potassium not enough. So there's precautionary steps just now, as you can see. You have to know, you have to remember that you have to wrap the bottle with black paper or black plastic. You want to prevent growth of green algae. Okay, green algae. We just want to study the seedlings, the growth of the seedlings. We don't want the green algae to serve as distractor. So where the green algae will use the nutrients of the culture solution, okay, because it itself is a plant and it's going to influence the results of the experiment. And the NOP solution must be replaced to ensure that the corns receive enough amounts of nutrients, and that the culture solution is attached to air pump, because we want the aeration to the root, enough aeration for the root. That means oxygen is enough for the root to undergo respiration. Okay, so number 2, which culture has grown a healthy corn seedling? Definitely it's the first one, culture A, because there's no deficient in any of those macronutrients. Okay, number 3, how does the ratio NPK affect the growth? Okay, so it is 15, 15, 15. Okay, so that means 1, 1, 1, 12, 12, 17. So generally, nitrogen gives plants their the green color, you see. Phosphorus for root development. Okay, for root development, phosphorus is associated with the root, and also potassium is necessary for the growth. Remember, potassium for the growth, for the growth. So plants that have these three elements in the right ratio will be able to absorb other nutrients for growth. So that's why kita ada baja NPK, NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, dan potassium. Okay.